Hey everyone, I can't believe that we finally made it to part 4 in the series, the finale, the ending to my story, and in this video we're going to be talking about recovery and what my life is like today. If you're new to this channel and you're interested in learning more about Cushing's, I highly suggest that you check out my Cushing's playlist that has the first 3 videos in the series before watching this one. So, today, talking about recovery, it's kind of this weird, ominous thing in the community that no one really talks about. All they tell you is that it's gonna suck and you might feel like you got hit by a bus. That doesn't explain a whole lot, so if the truth about recovery is right up your alley, keep watching. Okay, so let's set the scene of what my life was like right before my surgery. So my surgery date was scheduled 1 week before my senior fall semester of college. And it was going to be a really hard semester. It was mostly upper division MIS classes, so it was going to be really, really rough. Sick or not sick, recovery, not recovery. So I was in the mindset of, what could be worse than Cushing's? If I'm dealing with this, I could probably deal with this recovery thing, even though I'm not really sure what it is. So I had this really big dilemma of, should I take the semester off? Should I take a lighter load? What should I do? And thankfully, I talked to some more people who had gone through the process and told me about their recovery. And that finally helped me make the decision of, okay, I need to really take this seriously and give myself ample time to recover because it's going to be hard. And recovery is going to be different for everyone. But for me, I had a really rough process and it took me probably about 1.5 months, 2 months to fully recover, to feel like okay to do normal life functions. So I say all this just because if any of you are in this sort of position where you might have to be thinking about school and work and when you want to do your surgery, just make sure that there's a high likelihood that you might not feel very good for a couple weeks, couple months. So in the last video, I briefly brought up Hydrocortisone, which is the medication that you'll need to take. They might put you on prednisone or there might be another one, but I took Hydrocortisone, so we're only going to be talking about that. So if you're taking a different medication, completely disregard what I'm saying because it will not be the same for you, and always listen to your doctor in terms of what medications you're taking and the dosage. Anywho, Hydrocortisone is your lifeline after the surgery because it stops you from going into adrenal insufficiency, which is life-threatening. So your dosage and when you're taking this medication and what medication you're on will dictate your life for the next couple of months. Not only do you need this medication to function, but you also need to take into account that a normal person doesn't have Cushing's, has properly functioning glands. When you're stressed or you're sick, your body knows that it needs to make more cortisol. So as a person who no longer has those functions, if you get sick, if you are overly stressed for some reason, you need to take into account that you might need to be taking more medication. I say that, but the really big thing is that you also need to get a medical bracelet to wear, because if you are in a car accident or really any life-threatening situation and paramedics needed to help you, you need to make sure that they give you hydrocortisone, because if you don't, your body doesn't know how to deal with what just happened, and it can also be life-threatening. So before we talk any more about the medication, I want to talk about quickly what recovery feels like, because your medication will dictate how you feel. So someone finally explained this, it was my endocrinologist, he finally explained this to me after 2 weeks. I was checking in with him, I was like, why am I depressed? Why do I feel so awful? And he said it like this. So when you had Cushing's and you had all this cortisol in your body, it's almost like you're a drug addict on cortisol. And then once you have the surgery, you basically are cut cold turkey. So it feels like you're a drug addict going through withdrawals. And most of you probably don't know what that feels like. I didn't know what that felt like, but it's a lot of headaches, chills, fatigue, nausea, just overall like not feeling well, like your body's like, where the heck is my cortisol? I'm freaking out. So let's keep that in mind. Now let's talk about your medication. So when you come home from the hospital, you're probably going to be on a relatively high dose of your hydrocortisone, because we want to mimic how your body was when it was in the state of Cushing's with all this excess cortisol, because you don't want to just drop too fast, because then you're going to start going shock and you're going to feel awful. So they start you off high, and then you're going to work with your doctor to slowly taper off the medication and allow your gland to wake up and function normally again. And I know that this sucks because you just did this whole surgery and you want it to all be over, and you would think, oh, after I get this whole process like done with the surgery, like, oh, I should be fine. It's not the case. Because your medication is at such a high dosage at this point, you are still going to be experiencing Cushing symptoms. Now they're just artificial Cushing symptoms from the hydrocortisone. So you're still gonna have all of the acne, the weight gain, all of that stuff until you start to taper off the medication. But you do not want to rush this process at all. You have to allow your body to recover on its own, because it can be, one, really dangerous if you want to just like jump through all the hoops and be like, okay, I'm fine now, and you're gonna feel really bad. So that means that recovery can be pretty slow depending on how fast or slow your gland wants to wake up. For my dosing, when I first came home from the hospital, I was told to take 40 milligrams of hydrocortisone in the morning and then 20 in the evening. Those were my instructions. So I was doing this when I got home for the first like week or so, and I was like, why? I can't sleep at all. Because normally when you read a prescription, when you see, okay, I take this in the morning, I take this at night, you take like the first one around breakfast and you take the other one like around dinner time. In this case, the evening is not supposed to be evening, it's probably supposed to be afternoon. Because when you take the hydrocortisone at night, it keeps you up. So I eventually asked my endocrinologist, like, hey, I'm taking this at like 6 o'clock and I can't sleep. Like, what should I do? And he's like, well, you should probably be taking it more at like 2 or 3. So keep that in mind. Ask your doctor, but you should be probably taking it around 2 is probably best. You might feel kind of crappy in the later evening, but what we're trying to do is get your cortisol back on like that normal circadian rhythm. Talked about this in the first video if you remember the graph, but you have your cortisol rise to wake you up in the morning, and it falls slowly throughout the day, and then you're not going to have any at night so you can sleep, and then it comes back up again. So if you take it at 5 and you're trying to sleep, it's rising, and then it's going to come down late into the evening, but then you're taking it again in the morning. So in order to kind of regulate that, you want to take it right when you wake up, and then early afternoon if you can. I remember around like the 2-3 week mark, 4 week mark, I was like, okay, I want to start like seeing people again, making some plans. And I remember that it was so hard because I would have all of these highs and lows, and I honestly wouldn't know how I was going to feel until the moment came. So keep that in mind, that I know that you're probably going to want to like start to get back to normal life, and you're going to want to make plans. But just tell people, like, you know, I might have to cancel last minute. I don't know how I'm going to feel. You might go out and then realize that you're starting to feel really bad, so you're going to have to leave. It's just, you have to be really patient with your body and just surround yourself with people who are going to be patient with you, because it's a really hard process. So I had my surgery in late August, and I ended up starting a job in late October. And I remember feeling scared that I just like wasn't ready to commit to something like that. It was full time. It was work from home, so that helped. But it was my first like big girl job, and so I didn't want to mess it up, and I was just scared. But I think it ended up actually being really helpful, because it just kind of gave me that extra push to start recovering while incorporating just normal life. Everything after that was pretty much uphill. I was on medication until January, February, so like 4 or 5 months of medication, and by then I had tapered off and I was done with it. And after that, you really just have to check in with your endocrinologist. And I think I see mine every 6 months or so. And you just kind of check in, check your levels, check your other hormones, and see how you're doing. My Cushing symptoms slowly faded. Every month they got better. You kind of just see yourself going back to normal. It's a really weird process, and I think I felt pretty good like 6 to 8 months post-op, but I don't think I was really my true self again until like 2 years post-op, because there's so much that happens to your body while you have the disease, and also depending on how long you have the disease, it's going to take you longer to heal and for those symptoms to go away. But like for my vision changes to be gone, for like my brain fog and like mental state to be fully like back, that took a while. My hair to grow back, all of that, like I think 2 years is when I like was like, okay, I feel like I'm good. But everything, once you get out of that initial like recovery stage where you're feeling like the withdrawals, after you get through that, like life gets so much better. So now I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about some of the psychological effects that the disease had on me. I definitely think I have some form of PTSD just from the whole experience, and I think it manifests itself in a couple of different ways, so I want to talk about those. One being afraid of being sick in general, and then also being afraid of having Cushing's again. I think that every time I am sick, I'm just overly sensitive. Like I think the worst of things, and I just start to panic a little bit. And then obviously I think it's natural to be afraid that it could come back, because it's a thing. It's kind of like if someone has cancer, there's always a chance that it might come back. So just kind of living with that it's definitely gotten better. I think in the beginning, like the first year, second year, it was definitely more in the back of my mind. I think at this stage, only a little bit. I think it's always going to be there, but I definitely don't think about it too often. And then leaning into the second one, right after the surgery, had a really big fear of just being in a hospital, doctor's office sort of setting. I think my experience in the hospital just, gave me PTSD. I had panic attacks going into just like a normal doctor's office, so like has nothing to do with Cushing's. I think I can specifically remember a time I went to the gynecologist and I had a full-blown panic attack before I went in, just because like being in that sort of setting brought back so many memories of just like everything that I went through, and it was not good. So that's one way that it manifests itself. And then the last one, which is kind of weird and something I definitely didn't expect, was I have developed this weird trauma response to seeing like a really bloody, gory scene on like a TV show or a movie. I remember the first time it happened, I think my husband was just watching this random show. I was just like kind of watching in the background, and it was just like a really bloody scene, and I had a full-blown panic attack. And I think that it stems from all that like blood stuff that I had to deal with in the hospital, just like throwing up blood, but then like having that combined with going into shock, it just left a really like harsh imprint on me. So, and obviously I've never been like afraid of blood, or it was never an issue for me before my surgery. So that happened. So now I know I just don't really like watch that kind of stuff. I don't put myself in those scenarios. It's happened one other time in a movie. I didn't really see it coming. But when I put myself in those situations, so like seeing the blood or being in a doctor's office, you open yourself up to like being in that situation again. And that whole night in the hospital is just so vivid in my brain. So that's just something that I want people to be aware of. No one ever talked about that when I've heard people talk about their experience with Cushing's. So I just want to be open and honest, like that's a thing. It's a very taxing thing that we have to go through, and it can leave you with some trauma. Another thing that I do want to bring up, and I'd be curious to hear if anyone else has had something similar happen to them, but I developed a lot of pelvic floor issues post-surgery, and I didn't know this until a couple months after my surgery, but once I started seeing a pelvic floor therapist, she told me that a lot of times women hold, and men probably, hold a lot of their like trauma and stress in their pelvic floor region. So I've been dealing with like that since my surgery, really. It's kind of gotten better. I don't know. I could probably make a whole video about that, but I'm not sure how comfortable I am talking about my sex life on YouTube. But anyway, I've had pelvic floor issues probably just from the whole trauma and stress of the whole thing. Like, it's all held in my pelvic floor region for some reason. If anyone else has experienced that, I'd love to talk to you about it. But now I live a completely happy, healthy, normal life. And I am truly so thankful, honestly, for the whole experience and everything that I went through, because it made me who I am today. And it just gave me a whole new outlook on life. And I think it also definitely made me appreciate my body and just like normal functions of the body so much more, like a restful night's sleep, or having clear skin for a little bit, or just like a healthy state of mind. I feel like we all take those things for granted sometimes, and going through something like this really makes you appreciate that kind of stuff. I have such a heart for the version of me that went through all of that. She was so strong, and I'm so proud of her because she persevered, and now the version of me today is able to help other people and talk about this. It has taken me 2+ years to like mentally process everything that happened to me and be able to be in a state where I can talk about it, especially without crying. A friend of mine recently asked me if doing this helped me process in any way, and I definitely think that it has. But I kind of think, like, if anyone's been to therapy before, I don't know if you've had this experience, but like afterwards you kind of just feel like emotionally drained. That was my soul being taken away. It's just like everything, you're just like heavy. Like, I just had to relive all of that. So I definitely have had the experience of like, after I film a video and edit it and post it and it's finally like out there, I just like, you know? And especially because it's just like on the internet for people to see. It's like if you had a therapy session and then you just like put it on the internet. It's crazy. But with all that being said, like, I wouldn't trade any of this for anything. Like, just the comments that I get of like people asking questions or like saying that this was helpful to me, like, I wouldn't trade this for the world. I love it. Whoa. I can't believe that we made it through the series. There were really days that I didn't think it was gonna happen. But if you have Cushing's, just know that you are so loved and that I am an example of the better days that you have ahead. You're going to live a perfectly happy and healthy and normal life. And I'm so excited for you to just get through this dark time in your life. And I know that I wouldn't have made it through that time in my life without my faith in Jesus Christ. So in the next series, we're gonna be talking about my Christian testimony and all the truly beautiful things that he showed me during that time of my life. And there was some like crazy stuff that came out of just everything since I've put my faith and trust in him. So if you're excited for that and you found this content helpful, make sure that you like, subscribe, and comment. I love you all. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Okay, so my surgery was late August, and I started, everyone meet Bentley. He's my dog. He's barking right now. Oh my Lord. Bentley, come on. Let's go.